All right. Oh, boy. Let's do it live on a Monday edition. Merely Beau, the Great Z. How would you describe, these next couple of weeks as we were through mandatory minicamp, and here we are?
Well, it's going to be the
summer,
the calm before the storm. That's what it is. Yeah, school is out for summer, folks. People have left Berea en masse, and they're out
gone.
And about. They're having the time of their lives all over the country, probably the world. And, so now this is kind of
world's team.
World's team. Got to do a little tour. This is where we're going to go ahead and probably take a little bit of a pause. We'll kind of reset everything and kind of glide through and know that now all eyes are turned to the end of July when this team will return, and it will begin the season with training camp.
When we do our Cleveland Browns Daily World Tour and we visit all of our fantastic – now's when we do it, right?
That's right.
It's between now and your birthday, the 4th of July. Between now and your 4th of July, I think, which of course is made famous for your birthday. Those are the days that the World Tour will take place.
Yes.
Right? I mean, now's the time.
This is the time to do it.
Yeah.
Because
you could even do, if you wanted to, you could do like an Australia Far East tour, now, right now you could start that. And then you could do a European tour and get all of our people there. You could get them like in July. And of course all of this would be, completely, first class. There would be great golf involved. There would be great, time for us to relax and rejuvenate, but also to reach our people. And I think those are the two windows.
No, you're right about it. And I would say, given that Australia is in the southern hemisphere, I actually think we'd maybe want to try to hit them in like February after the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's next level out of you.
Because that's going to be their summer, and then we'll use
Look
this.
At the big brain on Z.
Yeah, it's a twice a year world tour. One would be at the conclusion of the season.
There you go.
Where we'd go southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere, Europe. We're doing now.
I see. Yep, that's a good job out of you. Yep, that's a dang good job out of you. You did a good job yesterday as well. You put an image up of Pedro, the likes of which I have never seen. I saw lovely Miss K must have retweeted. I don't know how else I saw it.
Yeah.
But it was just one of the most comprehensive, cool images I've ever seen. Just dripping cool.
I got to tell you, it ended up being the talk of the town. It ended up being certainly – I didn't have a single interaction with anybody yesterday that did not involve discussion of that photo. My dad would like everybody to know, Peter would like everybody to know that that tie shirt combo he was wearing were a nice salmon hue, which he found hilarious. He believes he is 23 or 24 in that picture. He had just started at
Hold the
his
front
job
door.
at Moreau.
You're telling me that mustache is on a man who is 23 or 24?
That's right.
Tom Selleck blushes at the look of that mustache, and he's 23 or 24 and can
what about that? The hair and the curl in the back, the duck butt?
He
had it all going. It was pretty incredible. I thought it was a pretty incredible photo. Many others did as well, and so good Father's Day. But when you get that, and I don't even – the sad thing is I don't even remember where I got that picture. It turns out I took a photo of it last time I was at his house in California, and why wouldn't you? If you see that, why would you not want to document it? But it's just it really was stunning, and it really kind of set the day off on the right note. A great Father's Day. Hope you had a great Father's Day as well.
Pure joy.
It's pure joy. Pure joy.
Does he have that above the mantle, above the fireplace, like enlarged?
So
I would if I were him. I would.
Yeah,
so you could see it.
I want that done oil on canvas with a big kind of frame of great importance, an Art Deco type frame, the kind you'd see in the White House, and that'll be, on the wall in OF. There's no doubt. I mean,
that's right. Yeah.
I mean, that almost embodies the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish.
I think it is everything that you want it to be. It is, yeah. Do you have a good Father's Day? You did a good job. I saw you cured some meats that you were talking about yesterday in an exchange we had with the Hoff.
Oh, yeah. It was a great Father's Day. The kids are 11 and 13 now, and so they actually wrote really nice, meaningful cards. They know I love cooking, so they got me my own kind of little herb garden. I have a huge rosemary plant. I'm a big rosemary guy, so that was really good, and they were fired up about it, and got me some cool shirts, a couple of cool T-shirts, and it was just about hanging out. Yeah, we had a great meal. I made a bison tomahawk ribeye, about 2.5 pounder. That was just an absolute. It was a delight. It really was. It was a delight. So yeah, we had a great meal yesterday.
Did you sous vide that, or did you just go straight to the grill with that?
No, sous vide it. It would be so hard to do straight on the grill because it's so thick that I think it would be impossible to get out of it what I got out of it with the sous vide, which was perfection because I just have to finish it on the grill. And it was the rib cap portion of this bison tomahawk was really a treat. Gibby, you got something to jump in here and say.
I just want to know if your son ate noodles or if he tried it.
No, so in fact, he actually had left something, so we had to make a special trip to go pick this back up before Father's Day really was able to get going. And I told him, I said, look, you got to take some responsibility for what happened here, Boods, and you're going to need to try some steak tonight. And unflappable, so resolute. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that, actually. So, no, he did. He picked out his fresh pasta. He's got a couple fresh pasta companies that he really likes, and had a linguine. But
there you go.
Arden ate it all. Arden had her steak. We had a little surf and turf. We had a little lobster tail, some mushrooms, a Caesar salad. Arden eats it all and delights in it. I mean, she loves it. So yeah, it was good. And yeah, we saw the Hoff made a crazy brisket. What'd you do yesterday? What was your story?
We did a good job. I'm still recovering, so I'm not all the way there yet. So normally this is the traditional. We play foursome. Me and the boys. We go hit the small ball around, and play a little bit. I was able to get out with them on Friday or Thursday afternoon. I can't remember. It was Thursday afternoon.
When you were passing off your pictures, your Thursday picture on a Friday when it was pouring rain. Although I got golfing on Friday.
We're on a text exchange. We're on a text exchange, and Gibby and Z, and I didn't see it right away. Were lamenting how terrible the weather was, and I sent a picture of the boys walking off of a green, just sunny skies, and I said, all sunny here in God's country. I mean, I don't know what you guys are missing. And Gibby, in a very stern tone, where are you? No, seriously, where are you? No.
And when
yesterday, actually.
Yes.
So
yesterday.
I was ready.
We did get that in on.
I was ready to get in the car and to drive wherever you were going to play golf with.
Find the sun.
I was going to join you because I'm like, this happened Memorial Day weekend. This is happening this weekend. What are we doing?
Sucks. Yeah, today sucks too. I mean, I don't know what's going on. I mean, June's been pretty dreadful. It's like it's either 95 or it's just rain and gross. I don't know. Usually we don't have rain like this in June. But I was able to caddy for the boys on Thursday afternoon, which was fun. And then, so what we had planned to do was we were going to the club, have a little meal, and then usually that was at like 5:30, done at 6:30, and then we were going to play for about an hour and a half, and kind of close it out that way. But it started to rain, so we weren't able to do that. So still had a tremendous time. You're right. I mean, the amount of thought that goes into the cards. Amy does a great job. She has the boys pick out the cards, and they pick them out, and they're so proud of not only the card, but also the things that they've written or the art they've done, and that's really the win.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty good. And it was an awesome sports weekend as well. I mean, the NBA is drunk. Atlanta and Milwaukee. The Suns up 1-0 on the Clippers. Just in Devin Booker with a 40-point triple-double in the game yesterday, and then Ben Simmons the last 4 games didn't attempt a shot in the fourth quarter of any of those games. I mean, it's just crazy how mentally you can get fried. Game I watched a Little League game between the Nets and the Bucks on the overtime game on Saturday. That was fun. And then the U.S. Open. So it was fun if I wasn't like dialed into all of it nonstop, but was able to paratroop in on some stuff, and it was a fun little sports weekend.
Yeah, incredible. The Game 7, Bucks and the Nets, was on Saturday night. Was a great game. You're basically at the point now where, obviously if the Clippers make it and you have Kawhi, he would be no stranger to winning an NBA title. But for the most part, you're going to have somebody's doing something that was not expected.
The Bucks last won the NBA title in 1971.
Yep.
The Hawks last won it in 1958.
Yep.
And the Clippers and the Suns have never won it. So
no, it's a pretty historic Final Four. That's cool. You mentioned the golf. The golf was what a tremendous kind of just finish. Rahm was just nails. Those two putts, the bombs, the let's goes after both of them. You notice that he gave a big let's go after both bombs.
I did, yeah.
Which I loved. And then Ustays, and you just can't hit it left.
Okay.
You just can't do it
right.
on 17.
Let me ask you the golfer that you are. So he's 247 out on 18. Somehow he saves par. He saved par on 17, right?
He bogeyed, so he's 2 down. He needed to eagle 18.
He needed to eagle. Okay. So he needed to get – but it's still in play, and he eagled it on Saturday. He took a remarkable putt. But so he's 247 out. We were watching at the club, so I couldn't hear the commentary. But why would he not have gone for it? What was the thinking?
So that was right when we were cooking, and I couldn't believe that I then saw him hitting trying to make a chip basically, or a pitch. I mean, he was inside of 100 at the end. I don't know why.
Pull it out
247.
From 70 yards.
He definitely can hit at 247.
No question.
Yeah, I did not.
He hit
see
it clean on the layup shot. He hit it clean. It was almost like he was conceding. So I was trying to read the closed captioning. Gibby, did you hear this? Did you hear the conversation around the Ustays shot on 18? You didn't? Okay. So the closed captioning was saying it was Bones was following, I believe, and he was trying to relay. You could almost hear the caddy saying, "Well, you can't get it, or you can get it there, but you can't control it." From there, it could end up anywhere, from that distance. And I just thought, well, who cares? Who cares? Like, you're either going to – that's your only chance to win this tournament is to do that. I mean, you're not going to hole out from 70 yards. You're not. So slam it up there, and hopefully you give yourself a putt. I mean, to me, who cares if you go in the water? I didn't understand the mindset. It was really strange. And so I'm sure we have the official teaching pro of the show. I'm sure Mr. Dixon can help us with this. But the thought process of
this is what happened.
Laying up, I didn't understand it.
Because he drove it into the rough on 18, so he had a poor angle to the green guarded by the pond. So he just probably thought there was that the odds were still, even though they were infinitesimally small, that he's going to hole out from the fairway on his third shot at 69 yards. He felt that gave him a better chance to have that was more likely than hitting that shot, having it be able to stop out of that rough anywhere where he could make a putt or a chip anyway. So he thought he had a better shot from 69 yards in the fairway. And listen, he hit it close. He made a birdie. His big mistake, honestly, was on 17. He didn't need to be that aggressive.
No, for sure.
Because he was going to birdie 18.
I just thought that he was going to birdie 18. I just thought it was weird to not go for it. Like, who cares?
Because I don't think he could have kept. I don't think he could have kept the ball anywhere where he thought he would have a reasonable eagle attempt. Because he was coming out of the rough. I think if he's in the fairway, then he's going to try. He'll going to hit a high soft cut up in there.
No, he was in the rough for sure,
yeah.
and I understand that obviously you're not going to be able to stop it. But to me, it still seemed like the better shot. But I'm some guy who stinks. But I mean, to me, I thought the better shot would be, you get lucky up there and you got a long putt. If you hit the perfect shot versus really a no risk with the second shot, but also almost it's 0%. You're not making a 70-yard shot. You're not holing it out.
These guys are pretty good.
I mean, that's just not happening.
No, it happens very rarely.
That's just not happening. You're not doing that. Yeah, it's not happening. So I do think this, though. I do think, as we spend a little bit of time talking here on golf, and I think we have to mention this. They got slumped in the ratings on Thursday and Friday night. Slumped by the NBA, by summer programming, the U.S. Open coverage. The ratings it was about 2 million people on Thursday and Friday watched the primetime U.S. Open. They've got a problem on their hands. And it seems that what they tried to do on the telecast was a Bryson DeChambeau is the star of golf along with Koepka and that rivalry, and hopefully that would create interest. But I'm sorry, that is not identifiable to anybody who doesn't love golf. If you don't love golf, it's not for you. So that tour is in a little bit of a problem to get slumped the way that they did in the ratings. I've not seen the ratings for Sunday, but they were annihilated by the NBA on Thursday night on ESPN. Annihilated, like almost 2.5 to 1. So they do have a little problem on their hands. No Tiger, no Phil in contention, and their stars are not relatable to non-golf fans. They're not.
No, and they had as much buzz as they possibly could have coming out of the PGA. I mean, it could not have been any better for them, honestly. By the way, Phil, all class. You see him bring the chair down for Rahm's wife to be able to watch.
What am I hard of seeing?
What a legend that guy is. He's really.
But it turns out he brought the chair for himself because there was already a chair for her to sit in, and then he sat in the chair he brought down.
Oh, he did?
She sat in the white chair. He sat in the black chair that he brought down. It was
that is true. Legend.
Yeah.
What a guy.
So great.
What a human.
So great. Yeah.
But no, you're right.
He's an all-time human.
You need. Yeah, it's very robotic, a lot of it, and nobody's watching to see if Louis Oosthuizen can hold on. I like John Rahm a lot. I thought that was great to see him win. First Spaniard to ever win the U.S. Open.
Especially after what happened at Memorial.
Right. They did show that clip, though, on Sunday. They re-showed that. His reaction, I would have thought for sure something really tragic had happened.
Is that the first time you'd seen it?
Yes. I'd read about it after we talked about it.
I was watching it live, and I thought that someone had died. His reaction led you to believe, and I knew he had a young baby. I thought that somebody near and dear to him died, and so when you heard it was COVID, you were like, "Oh my, thank God, thank God," like because that's what it seemed like in watching it. So, they're right now the best players in that sport do not identify with anybody other than people who already love it, and that's tough. That's tough. I mean, no Ricky, any of those guys. By the way, Rory McIlroy, if you show up in lemon cream pants, buddy, that's what you get. You're going to play a final round in lemon cream pants? That's how it's going to end, man.
With lavender up top? It was very odd, I thought, combo.
It was a ridiculous look. Like, wear white pants with that. You could wear navy pants with that. You could wear black pants with that. And it would all have been fine. You cannot. If you want to go like Laker homage, then wear gold. You cannot wear like the color of a lemon bar on your pants.
Though. Boy, is it.
It's a fantastic dessert. Refreshing.
Oh,
cleanses the palate. It's really a treat.
It is
a real treat. Real quick on this, too. One other piece of sports news of the day. The Supreme Court put the NCAA in a body bag this morning is what they did. So there's name, image, and likeness is coming, free transfers coming, all of that. This is going to affect college football in a very, very big way. But the big thing that happened today, and Justice Kavanaugh with the line of the day, which is the NCAA is not above the law. And essentially, you have been getting away with making billions without paying people. It's done. And so there will be countless litigation, and this is now a straightforward path towards compensation of college athletes.
Yep.
Anyway, this is the Big Ten. The Ohio State portion of the Big Ten Network, Fox, ESPN pie is $50 million. Ohio State football players are going to get their piece of that $50 million. That's what this is about, and it was 9-0. So this will change. This is the beginning of the end of college sports as you knew it, and this right now will be the jumping off point of what happens next, which you're going to have paid athletes in college,
as they should be, which is great. Do you think that this is going to further enhance the stratification that we're seeing even in college football right now, for example, where you know who the powers are, they have the most money? Do you think this further enhances it, or does it level the playing field? What do you think? What's the impact?
The impact will be, strength and conditioning coaches won't be making $1 million, and defensive coordinators won't be making $2 million because they're going to have to pay a bunch of players. So that will change. The hardest thing is going to be trying to organize and use unions for kids who are there for 4 years. So it's probably going to take 5 to 10 years to get organized on what it looks like, because who's going to represent, who's going to do that work, because by the time you can have it pay dividends for you, you're going to be on to pros, or you're no longer going to be playing. So unification is going to be the first thing that needs to happen off of it. I think it will. I think the rich will continue to be rich.
Yeah.
But I also think that the 12-team playoff, which is coming as well, will open it up because if you think about it, now, if you're LSU and you're Georgia and or whoever, and you feel like you're kind of locked out by Alabama, even though there's usually been a couple of SEC teams make it, now there could be upwards of 4 or 5 SEC teams make it. There could be 3 Big Ten, like Wisconsin could make it a lot because they're a top 12 program a lot. Penn State could make the playoffs. So I think it will level the playing field for that, and I also think it will squish and almost evaporate small school sports entirely. Because I don't know, there's no way that you could, for example, the MAC schools. I mean, there's just no way for them to make it work. They're not competing anyway.
Yep.
So there will almost have to be separate rules for every division. Like Division 3, 2, 1 AA, and then almost in between Power 5. That area the MAC operates in, like that area. There's a ton of schools in there. They're going to have their own rules to follow. So it's a pretty big change, but if you're a Browns fan and a Buckeye fan, you're going to be fine. That's not going to affect them in any way.
It's wild. Yeah,
plenty of money to go around.
That was a big one, no doubt.
Yeah,
really whenever
was.
you see antitrust,
OBM.
That's not what they want to see. NCAA, the words antitrust coming from the Supreme Court, not what you wanted to see on a Monday if you're the NCAA. Too bad. Sorry.
Buddy, 9-0.
Yeah.
On that court. 9-0. Like the one unifier in America right now is everybody versus the NCAA.
Yep.
If they're the opposition, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, you're down with them. So that's kind of where that is. But remarkable stuff, because I think what they were hoping for is name, image, and likeness will pacify, and we won't have to deal with this. And this ruling means that they will, and likely sooner rather than later. And those were your OBM Hot Topics. Ohio Business Machine, preferred copier provider, your Cleveland Browns. Call the X's and O's for your office. You can call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. And tune in to News 5, Tuesday, June 29th, 8 o'clock, Browns Countdown, Top 10 Moments, presented by Bridgestone. The Great Z and John Doss, with appearances by former Browns quarterbacks Tim Couch, current wide receiver Jarvis Landry. They count down the top moments in Cleveland Browns history as voted on by you, the fans, in the NFL Browns Countdown. Top 10 Moments presented by Bridgestone. It's Tuesday the 29th at 8 o'clock on that. Just out of curiosity, in terms of the nominees, how far back we going?
The entirety of Browns history.
75 years?
That's right. All 75. And you can go on the Browns app, if I'm not mistaken, and rank your top 10 moments and vote for it. There it is. I went on the app. I see me at the top. Hey, there I am. Hello, self. And then right below that, it says rank your top 10 moments in Cleveland Browns history. Submitting your rankings, which is going to produce the results of this top 10 countdown. You also have a chance to win 2 tickets to a Browns home game. So that's where the moments. Now, they're ranking them all the way leading into that, but these are going to be the final 10.
All right, very, very good. One man whose voice has been over many of them is the great Jim Donovan. He will join us coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. When you're dedicated to bringing the best value to your customers, you got to do a little work. Northeast Factory Direct was founded on the principle that quality shouldn't have to cost a ton, and they prove that every day by keeping their overhead low, buying by the truckload, and passing those savings on to you, the customers. When it comes to mattresses, they really outdid themselves. They searched the entire country to find the best factory, the best warranties, and now they have the latest technology in mattresses for a fraction of the cost. Northeast Factory Direct has you covered. King, queen, full, twin, bunk bed mattresses, box springs. If it involves a bed, they can take care of you. But unlike ordering online, you get to try it out before you buy it. That's a win. Check them out. West 140th Street in Cleveland, Lakeland Boulevard in Euclid, or Freeway Drive in Macedonia, or you can shop them online anytime at northeastfactorydirect.com. And with that, we head out on the hotline for a visit with the voice of the Cleveland Browns, great friend of the program, the great Jim Donovan. Jim, we always got to know what you're up to right now, and considering it's been straight slop, you might be mucking some stalls, or someone's mucking stalls out there, I would think, buddy.
You would have the right guy identified. I was mucking stalls. You're right. Did that this morning. This is a big day out here. We're moving hay today. We're getting the hay loft ready for a hay delivery. And I have to tell you something, that is a workout and a half, getting moving hay bales. It really is.
There's an art to it, right, Jim? Because you have to tie the bales together. So it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle workout is what it is. That's how my dad pitched it to me when I was a kid. Of course, I didn't have much choice.
You know, it really is, yeah, because if you do it right, it all fits together like a glove. If you do it wrong, it's like the Tower of Pizza, and it's going to fall down. It really is. And then you got a whale of a mess on your hands. It's a long day, but it's like everything else. When you see it done and accomplished, it looks good.
It certainly does. And these Browns look good, Jim. Nathan and I last week, it was one thing to talk about all these acquisitions. It's another thing to actually see it. And I'll be candid with you. For us, we were almost taken aback at just the way that you're not going to win a Super Bowl, certainly in June. But this team has a look that ones around here we haven't seen in a long time. What were your impressions?
Yeah, no doubt about it. It really does. It has a look. It has a sound to it. And to the eye, it is really something to watch. And I think when people actually see it out on the field, when the fans get a chance to see it via training camp and during those 3 preseason games, I think the thing that's going to jump out at you the most is the accumulation of speed on the football team. And when you compare it to the past years, when, we thought, okay, we're coming along here and this is getting better. And defensively we're struggling a little bit, but we're going to get better. When you see the way they play and how quickly they get from point A to point B, it's going to be startling. It really is, because it's very, very evident. You would be hard-pressed not to notice it if you sit and you watch the Browns, especially defensively, for any period of time, how fast they are out on the field. And if that's the new way, and I think it is, that a lot of teams realize that you have to play defense in the NFL, then I think the Browns are well on their way to being able to play that way at a very high level.
Yeah, it was that speed. That was my number one takeaway as well. Who of the players you referenced, especially on this defense, who were the ones that jumped out at you and said, yeah, there's that closing speed, there's that change of direction? Who are the guys that made that speed really come to life for you?
Well, I tell you what, I loved our first-round draft choice. I thought he was exceptional. I think Greg Newsome is going to be a terrific corner. He's got the right attitude. He's got tremendous burst. He just really attacks the play. He kind of reminds me a great deal of the guy on the other side, Denzel Ward, who really stood out when he arrived here in Cleveland because of his speed. But now you add this on the other side. I just thought he was exceptional for a young player who wasn't timid at all out on the football field and was right in the thick of things. So I thought that was great to see. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah flies around too, and he comes as advertised as a guy that can be all over the football field, and I thought he was. I thought that he is a really unique football player with a lot of ability in a lot of different areas that he can play on the field, and I think that is the plan, is to allow him to do very different things, because he definitely has the ability to do that. And I have to tell you, it was great seeing little number 13 out there, OBJ, and that's an amazing story, one that I know that we're going to follow hour by hour during training camp. Odell Beckham Jr. is back. He looks exceptional. It is just amazing to see him out there doing what he's doing when you consider that injury happened on October 25th.
And I was going to ask you, you mentioned the guys on D, the young players who really stood out. Two guys on defense coming back from injury that we saw a lot of, Greedy Williams, Grant Delpit, and then the other return, you mentioned OBJ. And with OBJ, Jim, I felt if you didn't know he was injured, if you just kind of dropped down into Cleveland and were up there, you'd have no idea. This is a guy who got hurt in the middle of the season with an ACL. But I thought all three moved around really well, and that's big, especially the two guys on D that didn't play a snap for you a year ago.
Yeah, it really is. But, the great thing is, Nathan, is that with what the Browns did in the draft, but even before that in free agency, they allowed those players who had significant injuries. Those are really bad injuries, especially, the Achilles tendon to Delpit. I mean, that's a tough injury. Yeah. I know he's young and he's going to come back, but it takes a lot of time to get that right. And the Greedy Williams injury was such a mystery just to diagnose it and what he was going through. And I don't even think we knew half the story until he started detailing during this offseason what he went through. But anyway, what the Browns did in free agency and the players they brought in allows these two players in Delpit and Greedy Williams to come back at the right pace of time. Before John Johnson came in and before Troy Hill came in and before they drafted Greg Newsome, I mean, we were, saying, well, these guys, Delpit and Greedy Williams, they're going to be back. But, there's no guarantee that they are going to be back and 100% when they do come back. The fact that they've been able to build around this and add to it, especially in those position areas, I just think it gives you the flexibility and the comfort factor that those guys can come back. And when they come back, you can bring them back at the right period of time when they're 100% or at least as close to 100% as they can get physically.
Well, Jim, and that's it, right? Yep. It's not just the talent, it's the depth of talent. It's
yeah.
4 safeties that are really good. It's 4 elite corners, you feel like, that are really, really good. There's that type of depth, throughout the roster at every position group. You think about tight end, you think about offensive line, it's all there. And as someone who's seen a lot of these Browns teams, where do you got to go back? Is it late 80s? Is it, some of those teams that, that team Belichick had in 94 where you look around? Nathan and I were talking last week on the show. You look around, you go, all right, it used to be, well, I hope this guy can play right guard. I hope one of these guys can step up and play right guard. There's none of that. There's none of that. It's we're going to cut people who can play. That's a tremendous difference.
The other day, there was, you always go through the story of the day coming out of a mini camp or a day in training camp. The other day, your team is in a pretty good position when one of the stories of the day is, hey, listen, there's going to be a really great, tough competition at kick returner. That's when you're probably pretty good offensively and defensively, that you're narrowed down to, hey, who's going to return punts and kicks for us? But I in reference to the historical part of taking a look at what we have now and what we've had in the past, those teams in the mid '80s, the Kozar teams, they were an overachieving bunch. They all had interesting stories. USFL, coming into the NFL that way. Guys that really just found a fit here in Cleveland and kind of meshed with Marty Schottenheimer and with the fans, I would have to say, too, to kind of put all of that together. And I would just really say that group was really an overachieving bunch. Ernest Biner, overachiever, considering where he was drafted coming out of East Carolina. The Belichick team in 1994 that made the playoffs, I mean, you had Vinny Testaverde, playing, at quarterback. You had, you had a lot of older players. He went to the New York Giants, the team that he came from as the defensive coordinator and then became the head coach of the Browns. And he brought a lot of older Giants with him to come in here. Carl Banks, Pepper Johnson came over. They had others that they brought over too. So this team is young. It is very, very vibrant. And at least even on the veteran side, if you really don't have an old graybeard on this team. You have guys that have played a number of years in the NFL, and, they're here. You could qualify them as veterans as compared to the other guys in the roster. This is a really young, very, very talented team that is really just – it's spilling out with a lot of, excitement and talent, and I think the players realize what they're about to be a part of. And that's pretty neat to watch.
It certainly is. And, you look out there, and we've talked about a lot of people, and Beau and I, when we talk about the 3 things we're most excited for, and at the time, not even in the top 3 was Jadeveon Clowney. And you mentioned, not a lot of old guys. He said, I'm the old guy here. What is the deal? I'm not that old. But, you got Clowney now with Miles, 2 former number 1 overall picks, and I thought he looked very explosive and very good. But, it is quite a collection of talent and excitement that, not that he's an afterthought, because he most certainly is not, but that's just, and we have Jadeveon Clowney too.
Nathan, you're right. And I was watching, and I think he was really excited about having the Myles Garrett factor on the other side of him. I mean, I think that he is like a kid on Christmas morning saying, wow, this is just going to be great to be playing. And to have this guy who's going to obviously always, whatever he does on the field, going to get an awful lot of attention. It's going to allow me to do some things maybe that I haven't been able to do in the past, because I have been that guy that has gotten a lot of attention. But there was a period last week, right at the end of the third day of the minicamp, where I was watching. I mean, we were over by the defensive lineman, and they had a spirited drill of who could get into the quarterback per se quicker than anybody else. And it was a lot of fun to watch. It was thrilling to watch. They were all having a great time competitively. And there was just a really great feel of togetherness, considering now that, as far as being together as a team, they were really only together for a team for 2 or 3 days at that period of time. It was amazing to watch how quickly they were coming together. And that's a good feel when you're going to make a massive change personnel-wise on one side of the ball like the Browns are defensively coming into July.
Yeah, we took note of that, too.
Yeah,
that was cool.
They're having a blast over there.
They're having the time of their lives over there, Jim. I want to ask you about Baker, because, he's just seemed he's just kind of a carefree but focused, always a smile on his face. And, look, I think we forget sometimes what he's been through as a player here. I mean, all the coaches, all the offenses, all the play callers, this is the first time where it's all being run back, and he knows everything, and it's just a couple of days. You don't want to make too much out of it. But from what I saw, was a guy who very much was comfortable in his own skin, very much was the Pied Piper of the team. Certainly everybody followed, clamored around him, but seemed very, very comfortable with everything they were doing offensively. What did you see in Baker?
Yeah, I thought he looks great. I have to tell you, I thought his press conference, the day that he had his availability with the media, I thought it was very relaxed. And I think that's some of what you're kind of leading to there, Beau, is that, and I think that what happens on the field is the feeling that he probably has off the field. So I really do believe you're right. There's a great comfort factor. There has to be. I mean, the way the season went last year and how he just kept getting better and better and more comfortable in that offense. And that, as he went into the offseason, knowing full well that everything is in place now and you can even grow the offense more and more. That's very exciting for him rather than going all the way back to the start again. And you get that line when there's going to be a massive change in coaching and in style of offense, for instance, that you're going to play, where players try and couch it by saying, well, the terminology is a little bit different, but really we're doing the same thing. But you're really not when you're making a big change like that. So for him to come in and have everything just moving straight ahead like it seems to be, I think that, number one, that has to make him feel very excited about what's going to be happening this year. But his media availability, I thought, told me an awful lot. I mean, it wasn't this combative. He wasn't trading, barbs with guys. I mean, he just was very, very relaxed, very comfortable. When he was questioned about the extension on his contract, I mean, he handled that with great grace and great, really, relaxation, knowing, hey, listen, it's probably going to get done. I'll let my people and the Browns handle that. Right now, I'm just worried about what's going on here. Because what's going on here for his job as a quarterback of a rising team is pretty exciting stuff. I mean, he has got the ability now to really make this even more of an explosive offense than it was last year, and it was pretty darn explosive. I mean, it was a big factor why they went to 11-5 and then won the playoff game. So I think that he's in a great spot right now. Good for him, because it has been, a revolving door as to who he was going to be sitting in front getting coached by, and that has all changed. So that in itself is the biggest factor.
It's an incredible thing to watch, his maturation, and almost the fact that in some ways he still remains, to the media at large, not to us, but the biggest question mark around this organization. Even though he finished the season with 20 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, when we have national people on, that's typically the topic. And I thought it was a sign of real maturity in how he handled that press conference. And then, as you both said, relaxed, comfortable out there. Were you surprised at how comfortable Baker was, Jim, but just this whole team? There are a lot of new faces, and it just felt like a workmanlike. They went through their business, but there was fun, there was emotion, it felt like they already had a chemistry and a camaraderie for this team going forward.
Yeah, the chemistry factor is it is amazing. That's the thing that really struck me, and I think my eyes were a lot more defensively to try and match up. Okay, this is what this guy looks like. And because let's face it, there are a lot of new faces over on that side. Offensively, I mean, that's just, they're all there, and they've been there, and they were all there last year, and so they're a year ahead of all of this defensively. But the chemistry factor was terrific. It really was. And I think I think guys that were here and have been here, but certainly were here last year, I think they're excited. I think guys that have joined the fray here, whether it be through free agency or they were drafted by the Browns, I think that they are even more excited to be here because they realize this is a really good situation. And what they are anticipating is the full effect of being a Cleveland Browns football player in Cleveland, and at a time when everyone's going to come back, they're going to be at the stadium. I think it's just going to be incredible. I think they are really excited about being on a really good football team in a really great football town.
Yes.
And that is not to be diminished at all or put passively. I mean, I think that players realize this is going to be an explosive, wonderful story when this thing goes on the field. And if it plays out the way we all feel it's going to be, it is going to be something to see. It really is, locally and certainly nationally. And then that would cure all of those doubts about the quarterback nationally.
You are right about that. It should be a lot of fun. Jim, we've talked about a lot of the big names. Anybody maybe that, a younger guy or somebody you thought maybe might be on the bubble that stood out to you that took this offseason seriously and maybe saw something in their body or their movement skills or just their performance that really jumped out at you?
Well, I took a look at, I took a look at Mack Wilson. I thought that, boy, he was really out there in a very competitive situation. Mack had I don't know. I see if you agree with me. I mean, he had an injury in training camp that kind of slowed him at the beginning of the year that we thought the day it happened. And I know you guys were, Nathan, you were doing your training camp show, and Beau, you were finishing up Cleveland Browns Daily that day when Mack Wilson went down. It looked like it was going to be for the entire year. That looked awful. So he lost a little bit of time. He came back. There was, he had kind of a funky year, but I thought at the end maybe the last couple of games, he played better. He played well, but I think he realized, there's a lot of talent here now, and there's different ways that we're going to have to play that position of linebacker. I thought he took that very seriously. I thought he looked terrific. I will tell you this: that not a kid that they picked up in the draft from UCLA, the kid Felton. I thought he looked really exceptionally. Again, that speed factor, and you can only imagine what they're probably, Alex Van Pelt and Kevin Stefanski and, what they're saying about, boy, what we could do with him. I mean, that would be very, very interesting, the different things. I look at a guy like JoJo Natson, who comes back here and, to return, who had a clear path to be the Browns kick return guy last year, and then he got injured early in the season and lost the year. He realizes he's coming back here, and, he's going to have to really compete hard to win a spot here with some other people that can do that and can do it pretty well competing against him. So those were some of the guys that I looked at. I really root for Greedy Williams. I hope that he's able to do it. I really do, because that was a tough injury. mysterious injury, serious injury. And he's got a young career, and hopefully he's going to be able to get turned around and get that on the field and be able to play.
Yeah, it's amazing, Jim, and I'll get you out of here on this. A quick thought on this: you've gone into all of these training camps through all these years, and you think about, all right, who's going to be the starting quarterback? Who's going to be this? Who's going to be that? As we're a month or so better away from the start of camp, what are the question marks for you?
Boy, there aren't many. I have to tell you. I mean, offensively, I don't see any. I think the storyline, Beau, will be OBJ coming back. How is he going to be? With him back, will they be able to do some things that they weren't able to do in his absence last year? But everything else seems very, very. I mean, really, everything's a go offensively, and I think Baker's just going to grow and grow with this offense. I think he loves it now, and I think he's going to love it even more. I think the thing that I look at is how quickly can the defense come together.
Yep.
And how that all comes together. I think it's going to take a little time. Everything does. It took a little time offensively last year to get it going, and then they finally did. Not too much time, but I mean a little bit of time. Defensively, I just wonder how that's all going to come together. I really do, and how quickly it's going to come together, because the talent's there. There's no doubt about that. Other than that, I just hope that they have good health. I think that's the thing you hope for right now, that they stay away from massive injuries that would knock people out. I know injuries happen, and they're definitely going to happen. They happen to every team, but you just don't want to get ravaged by them. When you get teams sometimes, can just get split apart by injuries, and I just hope that doesn't happen here, because I think if this team is allowed to play the way it looks to us, and I think when people see it, it's going to be a very, very difficult team to beat when you go up against them, and that is really exciting.
Yeah,
yes,
it is. It's exciting every time we get to talk to you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. Good luck with the hay this afternoon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
You got it.
The great Jim Donovan, the voice
of
the Cleveland Browns. What you have to do with the hazy in Gibbe is it's like Jenga. So you've got to go here, and then back to here. And then that, because of the way that it's baled, if you're talking square bales, or we call them square, but they're actually rectangle, then the fiber of the hay ties it together. And you really can't push it over. But it locks them in.
Yeah.
But if you don't, rookie mistake.
Topples right
Bootsy
over.
could push it over. Yeah. You can't have that. That's the way that goes. All right, we're doing Carolina at the top of the hour.
Yes.
So that's very fun. Take a look at where Carolina stands, and I think the big question we'll ask is, all things being equal, is Deshaun Watson quarterbacking this team? Because that's the feeling I've got every time we talk to somebody from down there, is that they were all in on Deshaun Watson. Instead, it'll be Sam Darnold.
No, they love Sam. Sam had a great mini camp.
I hope so.
I do
got
too.
nothing
I like
against him. I root for him. I think he was done wrong in New York, certainly.
Yeah.
So this will be a fun conversation. We'll have it next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Beau Bishop here for my friends at Weather Seal Home Services. You need a roof replacement. You'd like to replace your roof for the last time. Well, that's the benefit of choosing metal roof from Weather Seal. Metal roof technology, materials, styles, and colors have improved significantly. They are beautiful, nearly indestructible, and affordable. Plus, with new metal roof, Weather Seal includes 100 feet of free extra-large gutters and up to 7 years, zero-interest financing. Call my guys today, 877-351-SEAL, or visit weathersealhomeservices.com. In addition to that, injuries during childbirth require experienced counsel. Call the lawyers at Elk & Elk for a clear answer as to what happened during your child's birth. Elk & Elk, a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO today. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Time to head out on the hotline for a visit with Joe Person as we take a continued look behind enemy lines. Although the Panthers aren't really enemies, certainly. We wish the best for them on this OTA camp tour, though. We are going to focus on Carolina. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time. And let's just start with this. And Nathan and I were discussing this a little bit at the end of the last segment. If Deshaun Watson's situation isn't what it is it your belief, because we've talked to other people from down there, that he is a member of the Carolina Panthers right now?
I think they'd had a fighting shot at him for sure. At various reports as that Deshaun Watson kind of saga unfolded in several different levels this offseason. There was a talk that there was a report that he wanted to play in Miami, but I know this much: the Panthers were ready to put their best foot forward and try to make a deal for him, get him in here. Of course, he had played right up the road in Clemson or down the road. He grew up in North Georgia, which isn't too far. So, I mean, it made sense a little bit from that standpoint, Deshaun's comfort level in the Carolinas. But it made a lot of sense where the Panthers are concerned in looking for a franchise quarterback. But that, of course, that ended up going sideways with Deshaun Watson's legal situation, and the Panthers went another direction. And they kind of musical chairs, but they went ahead and grabbed Sam Darnold before those the quarterback musical chairs stopped. And it's kind of where we are. I mean, you do wonder, I certainly do, if Darnold struggles this year and Watson, ends up kind of just sort of being in limbo for another year. I don't know if he will or will not be, but could they be in the market for him? Could they be in the running for him, next off season? And I think so much has to play out, but I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
What are the initial impressions of Sam Darnold?
I think from the fan base, a little bit mixed. They've seen his track record. They know that he has a propensity for turning the ball over. He was the league's lowest rated passer last year. I think the optimists are of the belief or the hope that getting out of New York, getting into a different offensive system, one that was pretty successful last year with Teddy Bridgewater behind center. Joe Brady's regarded around the league as an up-and-coming offensive young mind. And so would the change of scenery benefit Sam Darnold? And we're playing alongside Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, who was actually his teammate for a couple of years in New York. Will that benefit Darnold? And that's the hope. I mean, I did a column last week for The Athletic that sort of just pointing out that Darnold did not have a real strong showing in their minicamp. But, Matt Rule was saying, look, we put a lot on the quarterback's plate. Like, he is learning everything anew, and we wanted to throw it all at him now so that he can start digesting it rather than kind of like, doing it piecemeal and continuing at training camp. And they threw it all at him, and that Matt Rule thinks that was part of the reason maybe the mini camp performance was a little choppy. But we'll see. I mean, we're going to get the Panthers are going to get a real good taste early on. This is a team that's having joint practices in successive weeks with the Indianapolis Colts and the Baltimore Ravens, which as you guys know, sometimes those practices are more revealing than the preseason games. So that'll be interesting.
and I wanted to piggyback kind of on that thought of Darnold with Joe Brady, and the work, obviously, what he did at LSU was incredible. But as you watched him last year, did you see things that led you to believe that he has that gift as a play caller, that he can be special?
It was a pretty dynamic offense, no doubt about it. I mean, we can kind of bend statistics any way we want, but they did have 4 players, the 2 receivers I mentioned, plus Curtis Samuel, who's now with Washington, and Mike Davis, who replaced McCaffrey when he was injured. All 4 of those guys ended up with 1,000 yards from scrimmage.
Yep.
Which is not nothing. I mean, that's moving the ball a lot up and down the field. Here's what I saw them do, though. They were pretty good from like the 20s, but between the 20s. Like, they'd get down, move the ball pretty quickly, and then bog down in the red zone. And I think that's an area where Joe Brady admittedly says he has to get better, be a better play caller. Again, I think having McCaffrey as an outlet would have helped in those situations. But some of it fell on Joe Brady. And but yeah, he's not going to. I mean, the Panthers aren't going to hold on to him very much longer. I mean, he had 5 interviews last year after just 1 season as a full-time coordinator, play caller at any level. And I know, the Zoom interviews were kind of easy to do, and a lot of people were getting interviews because of that, maybe more so than a normal year. But point being is, I think he'll get hired this season, this off season, next off season at a minimum.
When you mentioned the red zone, what did you kind of make of Teddy Bridgewater's comments that just, relative to other NFL teams he's been on, they didn't spend as much time working red zone and situational football? And is that something did you think that was true? Is that something that needs to be addressed going forward?
I think he absolutely hit it right on the head. And we were sitting out there, for those minicamp practices, and they had one, I think their second minicamp. It was the second of their 2 minicamp practices. That's all Matt Rule did. And so we asked him about it at the end of the practice, and he said, really last year, without the benefit of OTAs and minicamp, we were putting everything in a new system, at least the on-field portion of it, at training camp. He said so, and he didn't mention Teddy by name, but he basically conceded that they probably had to spend so much time on their base stuff last year that they did not get enough of that situational work in. And I think that did show in some instances. I'm reminded they were up in Minnesota, had a great chance to beat the Vikings on the road in what was sort of a homecoming game for Teddy Bridgewater. And they were really slow down at the goal line. Brady was deciding on a play call. They get it in at the last minute. They're rushing around. Teddy barely beats the play clock. And it turns out DJ Moore flashed open in the end zone, and Bridgewater missed him. So, Bridgewater, a lot of fans were like, well, because Bridgewater pointed out what everyone had seen, play was late getting in. And Bridgewater kind of said, well, play was late getting in, but, obviously he still had a receiver open. All of that which is a long way of saying that this team can improve. Joe Brady can improve as a play caller, especially in those situations.
Joe, I want to ask you about Tepper and his ambition. What can you tell us about what he wants to do with the organization, what type of owner he can be? He's been there a little while now, obviously hired a coach, the Cam Newton stuff. What can you tell us about him and the ambition he has for the organization?
Well, he thinks big. He likes a big splash. I mean, he's that way in the business world. He's now the NFL's richest owner, having grown his hedge fund company just through the roof. I mean, you see him on CNBC being, interviewed for business stuff, and taking on Trump a lot when Trump was in office. All of that to say that he's okay kind of being in it and kind of not being a behind the scenes owner. Like, he's at practice. I don't know how much football he knows. He's learning more every day. But for instance, he wants to do a new stadium here, and they're not close to asking for public money quite yet. But he wants to do it for the Panthers and for the MLS team that Tepper brought in here, and he brought in a new soccer team that starts next year. But he says, look, it's silly. He said Charlotte should be hosting Final Fours. Like, we're a basketball hotbed in Charlotte, and why should we need a facility where we can bid on Final Fours, we can bid on Super Bowls and that kind of stuff. And so I think we'll see that. I mean, I think they'll do probably a stadium downtown with a retractable roof and all that. And, from a football perspective, and you guys, that was the first question you guys asked me about with the quarterbacks, and rightfully so, because Tepper's going to keep swinging big until they get the quarterback situation right. Since he bought the team from Jerry Richardson, he had a season or two, I guess it was, of kind of a broken down Cam Newton, who was, and when he was playing, he was not healthy and didn't look healthy. And then last year he had Teddy Bridgewater, who was actually did a pretty passable job. Like with McCaffrey, that offense is probably, even better than they were. But Tepper made it clear toward the end of the season. We had a Zoom with him when they fired the general manager, Marty Herney, and he said, look, until you find that quarterback in this league that can get you the Super Bowl, you are constantly evaluating and reevaluating and reevaluating. And that's what they did this whole offseason. I mean, they were in on just about every quarterback of significance, from Matthew Stafford, talked about Deshaun Watson, and then finally landing on Sam Darnold. So that's what I mean. Like, they are not going to have like some long leash with Darnold. Like, if it doesn't happen this year, they're going to go swinging again next year for a quarterback.
Well, he's got some nice weapons. He's got Robbie Anderson that he knows from the Jets, DJ Moore, and Terrace Marshall Jr., who, if you look at the guys in this year's draft class, has that look of a number one guy. How is his health? Because I think, talk about the red zone, when you have a guy who's well over 6 feet tall and can go up and get it, and who led the LSU teams, in touchdowns, knows Brady, obviously. How did he look? Because I think he could be an important part, because they don't have the tight end. Ever since Greg Olsen left, they haven't had that tight end that was such a staple of the Panthers for basically his entire career.
Yeah, it's a good question, and you're right. They made some moves at tight end, bringing in Dan Arnold, who is just a pure pass-catching tight end. And then they drafted Tommy Tremble out of Notre Dame in the third round, who his shtick at Notre Dame was as a blocking tight end. So you add those guys to Ian Thomas, and I mean, that by committee approach usually means you don't really have one true tight end. So as that relates to Terrace Marshall, I would love to tell you what I saw from him, but he was pretty much in a red jersey, not working all spring as they try to get him back to health. He had at least one and maybe two different little procedures he did at the end. He had done at the end of his LSU career. So Matt Rule told us toward the end of camp, toward the end of minicamp, they could have gotten him back out there. I think they were like, let's just be prudent here. Let him get 100%. And, we've got plenty of time in July and August to get a look at him and how Terrace Marshall fits in, because they do. They've got a big need for a number 3 receiver. They had made an offer to try to get Curtis Samuel back. Washington, where of course Ron Rivera and Marty Herney are very familiar with Curtis Samuel, outbid the Panthers by quite a bit. And so the Panthers did go out and sign David Moore from Seattle, who's been a pretty dependable slot guy with the Seahawks. But boy, you're right. If they got some dynamic production out of Terrace Marshall, then this receiving core goes from pretty solid to potentially outstanding.
Joe, I'll get you out of here on this one, and thank you so much for your time. NFC South, obviously, got the Super Bowl champions in there, but big turnover everywhere else. What's kind of the pecking order beyond Tampa Bay as you see it?
Yeah, it's a tough call, right? I mean, I know that the Falcons are trying to extend that Matt Ryan window and give him, one more shot at it. And so you look at their roster, and there's a lot of holes in there, both sides of the ball, I think. So I don't know. You don't know. I mean, I guess it'll be Jameis Winston in New Orleans as opposed to Taysom Hill or some combination. I mean, it's a good. I mean, this is a division in transition, and you kind of think that the next team among these four that gets the quarterback situation right and just nails it could be sitting pretty and kind of or at least be poised to kind of take over and roll with it. So, but right now, I mean, I think you got to look at Tampa Bay, obviously short term in terms of the team to beat. 2 through 4, I mean, put them in a hat and pick some names, because I think any of those teams has the potential. Even the Panthers. I mean, if the Darnold thing, if they hit it right, and I'm not sure they have, but if he, we've seen that, with other guys, a Tannehill in Tennessee, and if that happens, I think the Panthers could, be poised to, make a run for like a wild card spot behind Tampa Bay, but I think it's anybody's guess.
Joe, great stuff, man. Thank you so much for your time. This was illuminating. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me, and you guys have a great summer.
You too.
Yeah, you too. That is Joe Person. He is an analyst and reporter covering the Panthers for The Athletic. He's great. I like talking to that guy.
Same.
Like that. A lot of good stuff there. We'll hit some of the categories on Carolina and answer some of the questions that we may have about them coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Love your home again this summer. Call the pros at Perfect Power Wash. Finally, we get outside, enjoy the time with family and friends, barbecues, parties, at least when it doesn't rain. And don't let dirt be the distraction. Whether it's your siding, your roof, your driveway, your deck, your patio. Over 20 years in business, PPW, the experts on restoring your home's curb appeal and making your neighbors jealous in the process. Don't spend time in the hot sun lugging around a heavy power washer all weekend just to get a fraction of the results. They know what they're doing, guys. The process is super easy. Takes 5 minutes on the phone. Now you can have the cleanest home on the block. And don't put it off any longer. Due to high demand, the schedule is filling up fast. Call the pros today, 888-860-WASH. Show your home some love. Use the promo code BEAU and get 10% off on your Perfect Power Wash as we hit the categories with the Carolina Panthers. We were talking in the break. I said this in the break, and if the NFL could do it over again, would they have put those two expansion teams in Carolina and in Jacksonville? And I'll be clear, I have not been to a game in Carolina, so I don't have a point of reference on that. They have done incredibly well as a franchise. Jacksonville has been a tougher road to hoe. I think without question that has not been the way that certainly what was hoping that it would be, that people from Orlando would drive to Jacksonville to go to games. It just hasn't happened. But Carolina's an interesting one. 2 Super Bowl appearances for the Panthers. And it's hard to argue from an expansion standpoint. It's a lot of success.
Yeah.
And as we're going through like coolest Panther of all time, they've got a lot.
A lot of them. Probably that of when Berman was in the heyday of his nicknames, Jake Daylight Come and Miwana Delhomme was one of the best. That's always an elite
that's
nickname.
An all-world. Yeah. That's a Mount Rushmore. I agree. And you've been down there, Z, and there's an excitement. You got it.
Absolutely. I think it was a great atmosphere. Again, that was my first year on the road, and that game actually still made a big impression on me. It was 2014. John Football started that game, ended up pulling a hammy, I think, on a designed quarterback sweep. We almost came back. I think Uncle Bronco Bill may have had a pick in that game. I think he had an interception in that one.
It was an ugly. It was like 14-9, like in the
It was
fourth
not a
quarter.
pretty. Yeah, it was
not good.
Not a beaut. But I just remember still being blown away by Cam and by Greg Olsen. And I will contend that I think for a long time I've really enjoyed the Panthers uniforms. I think when they wear the black jersey with the helmet looks great. You got that blue in there, the Panther blue. I think they've got nice looking unis, even the blue ones. And the
white looks great too.
It's a good look. It's a good look. Good.
From a branding standpoint, I don't know how you could. I think it's as strong as it gets.
Yes.
I mean, it's a beautiful color scheme. It's not quite Carolina blue. It's a little different, but it allows for that. Certainly as that one mean a lot to that state. And the black looks great, silver black, that bright blue.
With the blue's a great.
It's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, I thought that it was.
No, I agree.
It was an impressive place to be. And it felt like, they really did like their football team. And I just remember when we were out even before that, you got the sense that people in the town were into it. So I think that one feels like it's been a success. We'll see what Tepper can do with it. But I think they did a good job with that one.
I light up when I hear his ambition. That's why I asked that question of Joe in terms of what does he want it to be? Because when you have ship that's thinking the way that he is and saying, wait a second, we're the hotbed of basketball in this country. Like, it's them in Indiana. Like, that's where it matters most. That, what football is to Ohio, basketball is down there. And the fact that they don't have Final Fours because they don't have a place to hold it, that's ridiculous. And I don't know if it's just because the only corporate money they had down there was Bank of America for the longest time, but he's a one-man bank. He can do whatever he wants. He's got all the money in the world. So, I mean, when you hear that, richest owner in the National Football League, and understand who else owns in the National Football League, and you're number one.
That's not a small statement.
That's
not a small
you're
statement
talking about,
at all.
The family of one of the co-founders of Microsoft. You think about, I mean, it's an incredible thing to say. But nevertheless, that they are, and you put a downtown domed stadium, Charlotte, which I've only flown through, love the rocking chairs in the airport, but all of a sudden you put a downtown dome stadium, and now you open yourselves up for Super Bowls, for Final Fours. And if you do a retractable, I don't know, that seems like a home run for the league.
Agreed. And I think the point that there's no reason. And I think that's got to be part of the appeal for any city, right? And you don't want to have nothing but dome stadiums all around the country. But when you.
Why not?
Why not?
If you're in a climate.
Why not?
If you're in a climate where you have elements, why not? Why not make it so you can host things than
that's it.
10 dates a year?
That's the answer. And that is the reason why. Now we've got WrestleManias, Final Fours, big, conference tourney, Super Bowls, all of it's on the table, and you'll get it all. You will. It's just the way that it works.
College football playoffs.
It's the way it works.
Yes. They've played Super Bowls in Detroit and Indy.
That's right.
So they'll play them anywhere. All right? They'll do it anywhere.
They'll do it.
So, yeah,
Yeah. Minnesota in that new stadium?
Yes.
It's coming back to Atlanta. When you've got that facility, you get a chance to do it. And I think everywhere that's got good weather, you should do what, whether if it's a dome or it can open up. But yeah, don't take yourself out of the ring. Just like we're talking about the Browns wanting to get to the playoffs. You got to give yourself an opportunity to be in the dance. Give yourself a ticket. Cold weather or not reliable weather environments they don't get to be in the dance for these events that are not only prestigious, they're massive financial booms to the local economy. Massive.
That's right. Massive. Yeah. Yeah. No, it seems like a no-brainer. That was cool. All right. So this is interesting. Who is the greatest Carolina Panther of all time? They've got a bunch of Hoffs in a short amount of time. Not a bunch, but they got a couple. Like Kuechly's a first ballot Hoff,
yes,
for sure. Cam's an MVP of the league. You're talking about Julius Pepper, Steve Smith, McCaffrey's off to a nice start. Olsen's has had a great career. The greatest Panther of all time.
Greatest is tough. I'll probably go, if you think about the combination of everything, level of play, longevity, dominance, Julius Peppers, but he didn't do it all as a Carolina Panther.
No, Chicago too.
Right. And even Green Bay late in his career. Kuechly's the only one on this list. Kuechly and Greg Olsen are the only ones that have been exclusively Panthers, if I'm not mistaken.
Olsen played for the Bears too.
Oh, that's right.
And for the Seahawks.
You're right. Those are tough times to remember. They were not good.
They were.
They were not as good.
No.
So it's just Kuechly. Kuechly's the only one that was only a Panther because he retired very early in his career. I still think Julius Peppers is probably the best player of this list. Kuechly's probably second. And Steve Smith was awesome.
And I think probably if you say – it's funny, though, when I think of Carolina, I think of Cam. I mean, he's who I think of when I think of the franchise. I think of Cam Newton. I mean, and the fact that he won an MVP is probably the most important player in their franchise's history in terms of when he came along, coming off of what – they were kind of wayward. I mean, they had Jimmy Clausen. They were trying to find their way back. They had that early success with Delhomme, and they'd gotten to a Super Bowl, Steve Smith and those guys, but they were kind of lost. And then all of a sudden they land Cam, and there was some risk at taking Cam because nobody really knew how you were going to play with him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, what do we do with Cam? And then they just let him be Cam, and he was great. And he was the 2015 Cam Newton is as unstoppable a human as you'll find.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you were going to do with him. The thing that nobody could wrap their head around because of how impressive he is as a human being is that even big guys get hurt. And unfortunately, he took a lot of hits. He took a lot of hits. And, just when you're reliant on your physicality in the NFL, it chips away at it. Every year you're in the league, chips away at it. That's why the guys that are able to win much more in a cerebral fashion are able to have more longevity at or near their peak. But he's the first person that you probably think of with the Panther. First person you say, think of a Carolina Panther, the first person who's probably going to pop in my mind is Cam. Steve Smith probably second. Steve Smith would be up there too.
I think Steve Smith.
If you think about their Rushmore of Newton, Smith, Peppers, Kuechly
is pretty elite.
Is pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty elite.
That's pretty good. Gibby wants to know 2 years from now, is Sam Darnold the starting quarterback of the Carolina Panthers?
So Week 1, 2022?
Yeah.
No, it would be 23.
Week 1, 2023?
Yeah, because his contract got picked up. His fifth-year option for next year got picked up. So he's going to play 2021, 2022. He's under contract. He's got guaranteed money.
I would say you got to think it's probably more likely than not that he won't be their quarterback in 2023. But I'm not calling it 80-20. I think it's probably pretty much
slightly
50-50,
more likely.
but slightly more likely.
I think what that question comes down to, and you answer it, you have to say to yourself, do you believe in – and I liked him out of USC, but I never viewed him as, Andrew Luck or Trevor Lawrence. Like, he was never somebody that you went, oh, yeah, for sure, that's the guy. You didn't view it that way. But his circumstances of the Jets were as bad as can be. I mean, you just can't – no weapons, no offensive line to protect, very few weapons, no offensive line to protect, and a coach who is what it is. And I think when you start to think about Tannehill and you start to think about those things, you can't help but go, give the kid a chance. And if Joe Brady can call some ball plays, he might be okay.
Yeah. I just think based on our conversation that we just had, he might be okay. He might be good. But they seem to be in search of elite and will stop at nothing till they get it. So in 2 years, can he prove that he is elite? I think you'd have to say it's more likely that he will not prove it to Tepper's satisfaction, which is why I answered the question the way that I did.
I think you articulated that well. Gibby wants to know, NFC South, best city to visit, Charlotte, Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa.
We need to ask ourselves right now, is this the best division of just top-to-bottom road trips? Because I'm having a hard time thinking of a division that's better.
NFC West is better.
L.A., San Francisco,
Seattle, L.A., Arizona, San
That's
Francisco.
It. Yeah, those are the two.
The
NFC
AFC
West is not as good because of Kansas City.
No.
Kansas City.
No, Kansas City's not great. You have Denver.
Kansas City.
Denver, L.A.
When you drive around Kansas City, listen, I'm sure it's a wonderful town.
The Light District, the food.
There are very few places in our country that you go from the airport to the city, and if it was possible that like buses could just disappear and then blip and you land somewhere else, that you could think that you were in the communist block. Like there are very few places.
It's a weird
and that is the one that sticks out to me big time.
The travel
part
of
concrete.
It sucks.
Yes, a lot of concrete. Like just
it's a lot of concrete.
It's bizarre.
Coach. Yeah.
Yeah. NFC West, NFC South. This is pretty good too, though. I mean, this is
really
maybe more fun, whereas the others might be nicer vacation spots.
Is this the most debauched?
Yes, without question.
By far.
By far.
I mean, this is
even with Vegas
straight debauchery.
Even though the AFC West has Vegas,
even with Vegas,
LA, and Denver, this is.
I mean, you have three cities in here, and again, I've not been to Charlotte, like in terms of like social.
Very.
You have three cities in Atlanta, New Orleans, and Tampa, where the debauch level is as high of a level as can be. It can't get any higher than those three. Vegas they're on that level. All three of them.
Some of them have been called Vegases.
Right. Yeah. So when you ask the question, what's the best one to visit, I guess it depends on what you're into.
The good news is that Atlanta and Charlotte are the two that you can spend the most time in. Tampa you can too, I guess, if you're not going for full. But like New Orleans, much like Vegas, has a very finite window of time that it is okay to be. Like the week that I spent there for Super Bowl week, which you know what a Super Bowl week is like.
I was there too.
That probably took.
Come on.
That I lived a year in a week in New Orleans.
Yes. Well put. I agree. Yeah, it's not good for your health to be there. I think 2 nights, 3 at the most you can do there. That's the most.
Only saving grace I had was that our show wasn't till 2, and so we didn't have to be anywhere till like 11. Otherwise, the people that were doing the same things that we were doing and then being up at 8 in the morning, that's insane.
Yeah. That is. Again, I've not been to Charlotte, so this one I'll put on you guys. Best restaurant in Charlotte that is not the Great Fahrenheit, owned by our guy.
I've only been there.
Whalen that's the only. Yeah. If I was going to go, that's where I would go. You asked the question. Do you have the answer? That's the only place I'd go.
I'm trying to remember. I've been to a couple barbecue joints, but like nothing tops Fahrenheit. The rooftop that Rocco owns in Charlotte is off the charts.
Let me ask you this. I prefer, well, that's a statement, so let me ask you. Do you prefer Kansas City, Memphis, Charlotte, Carolina barbecue?
2.
Which one do you prefer of those three?
Those are four different barbecues.
Of those three, the best barbecue that I've had
Kansas City,
was
Memphis,
in Kansas
and Carolina.
City.
3 different.
The best I had.
So
was
that's
in
more
Kansas
of the
City.
sweet, right? That's more of the sweet. Well,
We just went to
Texas
this
would be
place
the other
where
one you could have.
They were the finest burnt ends I've ever had in my life.
The burnt ends, baby.
And they were.
I mean,
exquisite.
Casey Koulis, the last time we were in Kansas City, took us to a gas station. We waited outside in line in a rainstorm. I'm pretty sure we gave Donovan pneumonia because of it. And we ate inside this gas station, and it was off the charts at Kansas City.
Okay.
I went to
some place
that
there.
was not
Memphis
like that,
is a
but the
close second.
barbecue
I
was
like Memphis.
delightful, and I was indoors and covered, and it was really a treat.
It was fine.
Just fine.
Which did you settle on, Gibby? Which one?
Kansas City, but I think Memphis is a close second.
See, I love Carolina barbecue. I love the vinegar.
See, I don't love that vinegary, mustardy sauce. That's not my.
Yeah, I like that one.
That's not my type.
That's
of
my
sauce.
number one choice. Yeah, I like it. All right. Hey, Z hit me with a fascinating. I guess we should close out with this. What do you view with? Where do you put this Carolina team? It's all Darnold, right?
We got some good talent, both sides of the ball. I think they'll be fun to watch. I think they'll be able to score some points. But yeah, it's a Darnold and Brady referendum. And I thought, Joe Person's comments were interesting. That it's one thing to bring college coaches into the NFL, but they found out after a year, both of them limited in their NFL experience, obviously. It's because the talent levels are so tight, it really truly is a game of situational football. And to not be well-versed in situational football is going to cause you to lose a lot of close games, which they did last year. And the Browns were the masters of it. And I think, if you ask Coach Rule now, I'd rather have shaved a little bit off of, getting our base playbook in there and just focus on situations, because that's where these games are going to be won and lost.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, that was a good question to you about the Teddy comments. You hit me with a text last Friday. I believe it was you. Hit me with a text last Friday about what could be an impending situation in Chicago. We will get to that coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. If you live and breathe football, you know sometimes keeping your priorities straight can be a challenge. Unfortunately, the same can be true when you gamble. If you find your gambling is affecting other parts of your life, get some help, get some tips on responsible gambling at keepitfunohio.com. And tune into News 5 on June 29th, 8 o'clock. Browns Countdown, Top 10 Moments presented by Bridgestone, The Great Z, and John Doss, with appearances by Tim Couch and Jarvis Landry as they count down the top moments in Cleveland Browns history as voted on by you, the best fans in the NFL. Browns Countdown, Top 10 Moments presented by Bridgestone. It's Tuesday, June 29th at 8 o'clock, right there on News 5. So this was big news at the end of last week in Chicago, where the Bears and their ownership acknowledged a bid to buy Arlington International Racecourse in Arlington Heights, Illinois, with the obvious intent to build a stadium there. The mayor of Chicago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, was not pleased with this at all, and brought it out with a particular snarky bite. And among the things she said is they should focus on beating the Packers finally. Here's the quote. Like most Bears fans, we want the organization to focus on putting a winning team on the field, beating the Packers, and beating the Packers finally, and being relevant past October. Everything else is noise. The Bears have a lease at Soldier Field through 2033, so this is a ways out. Obviously, they just did the renovations there. I'm stunned they didn't put a roof on it when they did it.
Same, and it is a debacle. It's a disaster. It is so ugly inside
Look
that
at,
stadium.
when you say that, why is it?
It looks like a UFO landed in the left.
Oh, the look.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Not only that, but it is a true logistic nightmare. Like Radio Row, TV Row is in the stands. Like,
oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Like, fourth preseason game, bought hot dogs off a vendor because the press box is on the other side of the stadium, and we couldn't access it. We literally bought hot dogs off a vendor walking up the aisle.
How does that happen?
I don't know.
It's a relatively new renovation.
It was just terrible.
All the radio booths are just Cracker Jack boxes. There's no room. I literally sat with my head turned to the side. You can't see field goals when they go up.
How is it for fans? Like, is it cool in that respect?
I don't know. Everybody there thinks it's ugly inside. I mean, everybody thinks they botched it. It was such a classic look from the outside with the columns and Soldier Field, and then you get in and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Right. And the problem is your Soldier Field's a historic site, so you can't do anything with it. Like, it has to remain. Like, the structure, the outside structure.
Outside structure is fine. It's
in.
just what they did inside. I mean, I guess you could see from the one angle, you couldn't see the UFO, but it's kind of nuts. It just doesn't even go. It doesn't go with Chicago. It doesn't go with the team. It doesn't fit. None of it makes sense.
No.
There's nowhere to tailgate. You have to take the train and then walk over. Parking is limited. You don't get really a fan experience. Not like there's bars close by.
No. I think I've long said this about them, that to me they're like, it's one of the biggest underachieving. The fact that you have that market, and that's a Bears town. Like, for all the Bulls, Cubs, it's a Bears town, and they have it by the throat, and they have had very little success, and they should be far better off than they are, having that city to themselves. And again, no Super Bowls, no Final Fours, no none of that, because you don't put a roof on the thing.
Yeah.
And Chicago would do great at all that. They host the Big Ten basketball tournament. They do it clear down in the United Center, which isn't great. But it's hard to imagine the Bears not playing in Chicago.
No, you think they'd have to.
That can get ugly.
Yeah, not great. Not great. And in lighter news, better news from around the NFL, the Giants tweeted out Eli Manning is back home. Eli Manning has rejoined the organization in a business ops and fan engagement role. Plus, we've set the date for his jersey retirement and Ring of Honor. So congrats to Eli Manning, who really is.
How much work is he going to do?
Handled retirement. I think he's killing it. He throws out a couple hilarious tweets. Every now and then he goes out and makes some does some like joke videos that his delivery is so deadpan. It's great. He seems to just be he slid out of the limelight very easily and comfortably and seems quite happy, quite pleased.
Yeah. Made a nice bourbon with his brother. I mean, they got a lot of nice things going for themselves, those Manning kids. They know what they're doing, certainly. Still so much more to come. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on
much.
850 ESPN Cleveland.